kind of been a little bit of an unofficial ambassador for us for Serenity and Leadership this year, because you have come to so many of our events and been a really, really valuable contribution to those. So it started with our first Mastering Power Dialogue, and then you also came to our Mastering Feminine Power workshop. And what I love about you is that you are so open to, one, like a responsible leadership, but also the role of your feminine and masculine energies within that. And so can you talk a bit about, one, your experiences within the dialogues and the workshop, but also how that relates to your work with your team and how you kind of talk to them about using these more kind of feminine qualities in their work?
Okay, so my experiences in your workshop, I came to the workshop around Mastering Power. I was a member of, this is at the library and I'm a member. And I saw it and I came, and I like to explore new ways of doing the same thing. And so I was intrigued, and so I came along. And what I really liked about the way you set up that dialogue was just the inclusive. First you set up as a circle, so there was no defined head or leader. And that round table setup is important, and it's something that's actually developed in one of my places where I work, where the team it's a round table, and it's amazing how they take equal responsibility for what goes on. So in Mastering Power, which I think we all should do, like personal power, and then when you have power over others, as you do when you run a business, to be responsible with that and to be an asset in other people's lives. And then moving on to the Mastering Feminine Power, that called to me, and I brought a friend along who was very interested. She's very interested in power dynamics. And what's also struck me is how many females it's a majority females that have come to those sessions. So that must be a touch point with females about mastering power and understanding what power is, etc., etc. And I think I've told you this before. The last session you did I just found that amazing. It was the Lego play, the four quadrants of power. I walked away from that session very affected for about 2 weeks. I have to be honest with you. It was very, it made me reflect very deeply on certain powers, where I'd been, my journey, my evolution, etc. You know, when I stood in the quadrant of the negative masculine power, it took me back to a period in my life in the 90s which wasn't very great for me, and I was like, ooh, I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. But it was helpful in keeping things in perspective, to see where you are today, to see where you need to go forward in the future. Now, my fascination with the feminine aspects of power, comes from the conflict management training, workshops and coaching and mentoring that I do internally in my business, but also externally with other businesses, with people outside of security. And what I found in really helping others to develop and in developing myself as well, is to embrace the softer aspects of what people believe power is. So and it's interesting that when I'm dealing with the males in my industry and I'm coaching and mentoring them, I'm introducing the feminine. I don't name it that, because they would just put their barriers up and they wouldn't accept. They probably wouldn't accept it. But they know you need to embrace your feminine power. Like, what? And when I'm mentoring and coaching a lot of the females who believe they're powerless, or they can't affect or even stop a conflict situation because I'm a woman, they're sitting in that space, or they identify themselves, oh, I'm a woman, I don't have the power. I'm introducing the more masculine traits of power into them, and for them to embrace and then use. And there are times where I have to be tougher sometimes with the females to get them into that energy, embracing that energy of assertiveness, and then they'll go into a situation, be very assertive, and then surprise themselves that they were able to manage it. And then with the guys, it's because they're so quick to use the stronger energy to say, no, go in and be a bit more considerate. Listen first. Slow down. Patient. And when they embrace that, how much, when that light goes on their eyes, when it's, oh, I got the result I wanted, but not in the way I would have normally gone about it. And so in my own personal journey, I've got 4 sisters and 1 brother. So and mum, and now I have a daughter. And there are times when we get together at Christmas, it's just lots of females around. And that energy is just normal for me. It's not something which I don't understand or is alien to me. And in raising a daughter and trying to help a daughter to live in this world, this crazy world that we live in, and empower her, I have to see it from her. I can't tell her to act like me. I'm 6'7". Most people look at me in a different way than they do a female. So I have to see it from her point of view, and the skill, and pass those skills that she can use in who she is. And she is coming from a feminine aspect. So sometimes I'm with my daughter, and you can see she's, I can't because I'm a woman. And I'm like, no, you can because you're a woman. All you have to do is use this different energy here. And seeing her blossom and grow is fantastic. So the feminine and masculine, and is the balance between the two. You may be successful, but you won't be successful majority of the time. But when you can remain balanced, you'll be successful a lot more if you can make use of the feminine and masculine and know when to access those different energies to get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, some of the women in that workshop, and it was a realization that I'd had anyway previously with my own kind of internal work around the feminine and masculine, is that for a woman, you can't really fully embrace and use and harness your feminine energy to its full potential without understanding your masculine energy and having that there as a solid base of which to operate from. Yeah. Because and I think we talk a lot about women in the workplace having to lead with their masculine energy just to fit in, and I think there's a really nuanced, subtle difference between understanding and harnessing your masculine energy to then be able to lead with your feminine and vice versa.
And I think I noticed with a lot of the women the frustration that they are leading with their male energy and maybe have got stuck there, and because they're not accessing their feminine energy, there's a frustration or there's a disconnect from who they really are, and they were looking for a new way. That's probably why they were in the room. They were looking for another way to, and maybe not being able to name it, and you guys probably helped them to name what's going on, and then help them to embrace that feminine power and see the power in using feminine energy and power. Whereas I think a lot of them were seeing it as something they had to keep away to get the respect of men, and to be able to live in that male-dominated environment.
But as a man, did you ever feel frustrated by not being able to express or use your feminine energy at any point in your life? Was there a point that you realised that you had these different energies and you could call upon them?
I think that came later, my late 20s. And I think up until that point, when I go back to me hating bullies and protecting the vulnerable and young, it comes from a place of compassion. And I wouldn't say that I was too young to even know what that meant. It was just something natural, that I had a compassion for the vulnerable, the weak, and felt that they had the right to exist freely just as much as everybody else. So when somebody's trying to oppress them, suppress them, or take away their identity to a certain extent by bullying them, I was like, no, that's not right. Again, it's going back to the right or wrong, and it's just natural that doesn't look right to me, and I'm going to do something about it. As I say, God bless me with height. So I was able to make a difference in that regard. Maybe if I wasn't a tall kid, might have got beaten up a couple of times and said, okay, I don't think I should do that anymore. Or maybe would have found another way. Just to share, this is like a new phase. Again, this is a new phase of my life. And I understand I need to share my journey. I got shot when I was 21 years old. I got shot in the face. And after getting shot, I blamed myself. You go through those processes of blame yourself, shame, anger, etc., etc. And because I blamed myself, I was like, okay, the person who I was before I got shot is why I got shot. So I'm going to be the complete 180-degree opposite of that person. So for a while, I was not a very nice person to be around. And after a few years, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and then realizing that, look, I need to do something about this, and getting help, getting counseling, etc. I was like, no, I don't, this is not who I want to be. I actually like the person I was before I got shot, and I want that guy back. So I went on a long process of counseling, did a spiritual healing workshop, which I mentioned to you in 1998, which just kind of burst the doors open on my true nature. And then from that moment onwards, I just refused to go back to being this. I felt like a two-dimensional person. I was like this cardboard cutout and was living in a cartoon world with all of these stupid people who identified themselves as gangsters or bad men. And even though I wasn't one of them, I was in that world and had to live in that world and be of that world and kind of protect myself within that environment. So when I took myself out of that environment and got back to who I was, I took those experiences of the dark, so feminine, masculine, so the dark and the light, brought them together for them to be, okay, this is the way you're going to help others, by understanding the dark, living in the light, and then guiding first myself, but then others, like my daughter, the people who I worked with before I had my business, and then within my business now, it's I really am protecting my people, my clients, from the dark by using the light. That's what it's that's the key to everything I do.